us, we are the future. Ride for the culture, put my dirty clothes on the lines of a notebook. Never hide from exposure, show you nobody is unbroken.
Remember my name, you see my face, every breath that you take. Just when you think I was torn down in flames, I'm born again. All of my dark days are gone. You will remember. Yeah, you will remember. Yeah, you will remember. You will remember. Yeah.
I'm unstoppable. Came too far to be barred by an obstacle. That's not an optional. What they call hard is like riding a bicycle. I'm phenomenal. Feeling like I could do what a mythological guy could do. Power is optimal. It's my time to make impossible and the possible.
Remember my name. You see my face, every breath that you take. Just when you think I was torn down in flames, I'm born again. All of my dark days are gone. You will remember. Yeah, you will remember. Yeah, you will remember. You will remember. Yeah. I'm born again. I'm born again. All of my dark days are gone. Remember my name. You see my face, every breath that you take. Just when you think I was torn down in flames, I'm born again. All of my dark days are gone. You will remember. Yeah, you will remember. Yeah, you will remember. You will remember. Yeah.
For 5 weeks, NASCAR stars from around the world are here to race. This is eNASCAR International.
I'm feeling inside. I'm reaching my stride. I'm standing my ground. I won't give in. Raising the roof.
Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to iRacing's coverage of the second race, the 2022 DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports, the Coca-Cola 30, live from iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario. James Pike here alongside Kenneth Bueno, set to bring you all the action. And Kenneth, we go from the oval of Homestead Miami Speedway 1 week ago. James Pike here, a road course of the season, a track that is featured on the NASCAR Pinty Series calendar in years past, and a fun racetrack to tackle in any sort of stock car.
It is very technical racetrack, James, and I think this is kind of a sigh of relief for many of the drivers because they got a taste of oval racing for the first race of the season. Now they get to back to what they're usually doing on the racetrack in real life, road racing. And this track, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, I think it's the best place really to start off our road course campaign all the way to what's going to be the final regular season race at the Phoenix Raceway. And so you get to up north, you get a little bit colder in the temperatures, but nonetheless the racing gets a little bit better each and every time throughout.
It's our first of 3 road courses in this series for 2022. So you look at the schedule here. We went to Homestead Miami Speedway last week. Raja Caruth, winner and a NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program, also going to be running in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Alpha Prime Racing. Canadian Tire today. Zolder, part of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series next week. Daytona on the road course on January 29th. Then we wrap up the series from Phoenix Raceway, as Kenneth said, on the first Saturday of February. Should be a lot of fun to take us through the series. Kenneth Bueno, take us through Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
I'm not necessarily a Canadian, so I don't have all the info on this track, at least in terms of home, but nonetheless, this is a very technical racetrack, and from a distance, you can already tell it's not a very tight circuit. It's a wide open track with a lot of sweeping curves and a lot of interesting uphill and downhill corners. This is a 2.459 mile circuit, 3.957 kilometers, a total of 10 turns. This track has history dating back to 1961, and James, it has held races all the way from Formula One to the current NASCAR Camping World Truck Series schedule, and this is definitely a fun track. You've got a lot of different challenges, and just when you think that you've got a bit of relaxation out of every corner, you got to tackle the next one. That's what makes it so fun.
A lot of elevation changes here, a lot of long flowing corners, especially in the opening part of the lap, Kenneth Bueno, and lots of fun to be had there as we get ready to take a look at our race analysis. We'll tell you a little bit more about what the drivers can expect today. 30 laps, 74 miles. That's where we get our Coca-Cola 30 from. Pit road speed is 35 miles an hour. Your pit window is 15 to 17 laps, so you'll have to make at least one stop, and weather pretty balmy within the sim. Air temp is currently 78 degrees Fahrenheit, winds to the north at 2 miles an hour. The track temp, however, is 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and humidity of 56% in sim time. The default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2022, just after 4 p.m. local time. So a warm one here. The sim thinks it's May, and temperatures do start to rise, even if we're as far north as we are in Ontario.
Yeah, definitely going to be a bit of a struggle, I think, with the Goodyear tires and with these low downforce NASCAR Xfinity Series cars with the hotter temps. I said that we're up north, it's wintertime, but not wintertime at all. Nonetheless, it's still going to be a lot of fun here up north in Canada, and we're definitely going to have a great one here, James. And what's going to be even more fun is going to be what the fans can do with our main series sponsor, DBOX. They've got a contest going up where you can predict who's going to win the eNASCAR International iRacing Series, and it comes with a monster of a rig. This isn't your grandma's rig. This is an OG rig right here, James, and it's going to be a lot of fun for people to kind of engage in this series and hopefully be able to win.
There's so much that you can get out of that package. A Simlabs P1X chassis, a seat, brackets, a whole Fanatec direct drive system with the NASCAR rim and a shifter and a floor stand mount and a 49-inch Samsung ultra-wide screen that's curved through with the DBOX haptic system, of course, making sure that you really can feel it all when you drive on the racetrack. So you'll want to jump on it and sign up by hitting that newsletter at d-box.com/eNASCAR/contest. That's how you will enter in and get your chance to win that rig. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for this afternoon's Coca-Cola 30, and it is a driver out of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, Alon Day, the Israeli driver, with a fast time of 1 minute and 21.121 seconds to take the top spot on the grid over Germany's Tobias Staudenhauer. Alex de Alba out of the NASCAR Peak Mexico Series rolls off from third alongside Simon Pilot. Drayton Lapsevich, the highest qualifying of the Canadians in this field. Paul Jouffreau of France will roll off from sixth.
Two Peak Mexico Series drivers line up the row number 4 of today's race. Aaron Cosio on the number 5 will line up inside on that row with Victor Barrales Jr., the driver who finished in the podium last week at Homestead Miami Speedway. He's looking to do some well here today. From Canada, Raja Karuth, our winner last week at Homestead. He's going to look to go 2 in a row in this eNASCAR International iRacing Series with Davide Dallara in the 90 machine to his outside. Finalizing the drivers within the top 12 include Pinty Series driver Alex Tagliani and Diego Ortiz.
Going back to 13th, it's Ulises Del Sol starting alongside Jake Cosio, Euro Series in Mexico. Side by side there, Justin Campbell out of the Drive for Diversity alongside Federico Gutierrez, Miguel Gomez, and Gordon Barnes roll off 17th and 18th.
All the way back through 19 through the rest of the grid, you'll find Vladimiro Sotzis in the number 1 machine. Massimiliano Lanza will be to his outside before you find Pinty Series driver Jocelyn Fecteau and Whelen Euro Series competitor Leonardo Colavita. Giorgio Maggi, Andres Perez de Lara will be the final drivers through row number 12, and then the last driver in this 25-car grid will be the number 48 of Yegin Sokolovsky.
Sokolovsky, the Ukrainian, completing our 25-car field for this afternoon's Coca-Cola 32nd race of 5 in the 2022 DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports, coming away from the virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. James Mike, Kenneth Bueno here to bring you all the action over the next 30 laps. We should be in for a fun one. KB, before we get going, what are you most excited to see here today?
I think I'm most excited to see Moss Corner, James. That's a very fun part of the track, and it's a drama-filled part of the course where you go uphill, you really go down through the gears. You have to bang it all the way through pretty much second to first gear. You're going really slow, but because you're going up the hill and because you have to really wind yourself around those two right-handers before you get to the Mario Andretti straightaway, you are really just hoping you can nail those two corners. There they go out of those respective corners, and that's going to be so much fun to see them go up and then go all the way down to the straight and try and really launch it off. And with these Xfinity Series cars, I mentioned low downforce, the hot track temperatures make it really tough to get grip, especially out of those slow sections. So watch for drivers to try to get their cars as gripped up as possible out of that stretch. And it's going to be amazing to see all of them pack into there for the first time today.
How many times have we seen drivers, especially in some of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series races here in years past, end up going door-to-door through Moss Corner? It's arguably the signature corner here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as you get a good on-board look at Justin Campbell before we go green flag racing. But yes, drivers will have to be careful because you've got that transition from the slow speed of Moss Corner to the fast speed and the blitz down the Mario Andretti straight. You have to be careful about how you get back on the throttle because, as you said, Kenneth, low downforce, high horsepower, a lot of torque generated by these cars in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and could be tricky. We could see someone loop themselves around as Alon Day will take off and go out of the final corner, and we are green flag racing in the Coca-Cola 30 race number 2 in the 2022 DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports is underway. one lap complete. They've already strung themselves out a long day, already working the wheel pretty hard. You can see lots of concentration in that face and lots of just short twitching motions there, Kenneth, just to control the car and settle it, because these are long apexes that you're working with, especially in the first half of the lap here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and you have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait some more to get on the throttle, and you really are driving the car, especially through that first half, a lot with the throttle and with the rear end.
And the throttle is going to be really key here, just because I mentioned Moss Corner, how slow that is, but pretty much every other part of this track is relatively quick. You're not really going down in the second gear that much, or first gear really at all, apart from this corner right here as you watch Train Lapsevich get out of there and head for the Mario Andretti straightaway. You're trying to keep your car up in momentum because you're going through these very flowy corners and you're trying to hit the apex like you mentioned, James, but you're also trying to make sure you've got the speed to correlate with the way your car is pointed, because if you don't, then chances are you're going to lose a lot of that speed, and drivers behind you are going to take advantage of that and try to get by you. Here's a look on board from the 46 car of Miguel Gomez, the Portuguese driver in the number 46 City Chevrolet, which we've seen a throwback to the Days of Thunder movie with Tom Cruise. We mentioned that last week at Homestead Miami Speedway, and so far doing a good job right now, rolling through the top 15, I'd say top 12, as he tries to chase a couple of cars in front of him.
Three drivers who had some off-track incidents, most notably Alex Tagliani out of the NASCAR 50 Series. Now we go on board with the Washington, D.C. native, part of the Drive for Diversity. We saw him win at Homestead Miami last week, trying to go 2 for 2. Raja Karuth currently running just in the back end of the top 10 and 9th, and a pretty heated battle with last week's runner-up, Victor Baradas.
Yeah, these two really ran well at Homestead, and for Baradas, we probably weren't expecting him to kind of run up front, but especially in the long runs, that's really where he started to put it on. And so far, a decent run in the first couple laps by both of those drivers, respectively. Of course, the 39, a part of the Peak Mexico Series in NASCAR, and so far, just in a little bit of a pack. I was about to mention it just because they were around the top 10, almost working all together, trying to pick off draft of each other in most of these corners. And so far, Baradas, you get a good look at his sim rig as he goes through the Mario Andretti straightaway and heads for the final corners on the circuit.
And also of note, he hasn't changed his rim from last week. We noted that he had that Formula-style rim when we were racing at Homestead Miami Speedway. Traditionally, you see that more on road courses, so I guess by default and just by standard protocol, maybe it makes a little bit more sense to see him running the Formula rim, just because you see more drivers run rims like that on road courses with the amount of turning you have to do. So might be a little bit more in his wheelhouse, but right now, Raj is certainly pushing. Whether or not that's him pushing the tires, really just driving hard at the moment, or whether or not he genuinely has more pace, I don't know if we've got enough laps to figure that out at the moment, but what we do know is that Raja is not letting Baradas go.
And that's one of the pivotal moments of road course racing, and you can kind of do it on the oval side, but it doesn't matter as much in the case of what Karuth is doing right now. And in a way, this is kind of a mental game. You stay behind the driver, and if you have more pace, naturally you're going to be up to the back bumper. You're going to try to make that pass if you can, but there is a mental game of just staying behind them just to let them know you're there. And if you put that pressure, if you pressurize them enough by being so close in that rear view mirror, maybe they think about it a little more, maybe they understand that you're a little bit faster behind them, and then they can make a mistake over driving a corner, maybe getting loose out of, let's say, Moss Corner, losing the grip on the tires on the rear end, and so you have lost time out of the driver in front, which only helps, let's say, Karuth, who could be trying to play this game behind in the rearview mirror. So we'll see if that's going to be the case over the course of this 30-lap event, but so far, Karuth definitely is hounding on the rear bumper, no doubt, on the 39. And speaking of hounding on the rear bumper, we've got drivers battling for second on back. That's Tobias Downhauer, the German driver, under fire from Simon Pilot.
This is Germany versus Belgium versus France. Paul Jouffreau making up the third car in this trio who we're on board with now, and this is indeed the battle for second, third, and fourth. A long day has already stretched out his lead to just over 3 seconds, so there is a bit of gap. You see just in the upper corner of your screen, they're up towards the left as they sweep through this first set of turns of the racetrack, but Jouffreau locked in there, set up, good shot of his rig, just trying to make sure that he can hang with Pilot and with Downhauer to keep up this battle for P2.
And you can see just how hard he's working through all of these corners. And I mentioned just how much the momentum you have to keep up through those flowy corners, but this track is relatively bumpy. You're gonna have to kind of wheel your way around it. It's not relatively easy. It's not a smooth ride whatsoever here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So you see just how hard Jufro, the French driver, has to work, and how pretty much everybody else has to work their wheel in order to get through the corners. And now as he gets to the straightaway, gonna be a bit of a muscle relaxation moment as he tries to chase down Simon Pilot. But with this differential, I think on the road courses, especially from last week at Homestead, everybody's separated. Everybody's already now in their own race. They're developing their own rhythm. You see the leader, Alan Day, in the 21, has already pretty much scarced himself away from everybody else, and that's just a part of getting the muscle memory in, getting the road course experience in, and just racing your own race. Trying to race the track instead of racing everybody else. That seems to be the biggest focus today.
The most entertaining thing, hands down, I've seen in these opening laps is just how much these drivers are having to steer with the rear of the cars. We mentioned it a little bit earlier in the show, but if you get a good look here, I don't know if we've got a good camera shot that really highlights it, but just the way these cars wiggle, especially through the corners. You can see it here a little bit as we go on board with Paul Jufro, but I am seeing cars practically fishtail, almost crab walk on corner exit, and it underscores how much you have to find speed, not just by braking properly, but also by making sure that you roll back into the gas as well.
And also, no doubt, low downforce and the fact that the track is burning so far, to say the least here in Canada, over 100 degrees on the track temp. You really have to kick out that rear end and try to experiment. And over the course of the first 6 laps, I mean, you've already seen a couple of drivers do it. They've already whipped the right side, or the right rears of the race cars to a different side, and really trying to tussle the cars around. And with stock cars, that's what makes it so different, especially with NASCAR demographic. The NASCAR scene is that you're racing very heavy stock cars. These are not very lightweight machines. These aren't cars that have so much downforce all over it that you can easily just get through any corner without having to worry a bit or without having to break a sweat. These cars, especially the Xfinity Series machines, are very physical in nature. So you have to find a way, like you said, James, to wiggle the rear end, to get the car steered in with that rear end, and also just try to make sure you can get over 3,000 pounds of sheet metal across the corners and downhill, uphill as well.
Good look at Simon Pilot, who really is pushing, driver of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series, based out of Braine-l'Alleud in Belgium, part of the French piece of that country. We know they speak multiple languages there, sort of a melting pot of different cultures between French, Flemish, a little bit of German in there too. But Pilot trying to drive, trying to go catch what would be the battle for P2 with Dowdhauer, and just also keeping Paul Jufro at bay. But it almost looks like within the last lap or two that Jufro has managed to gain. I'm not sure whether or not that's Jufro gaining or Pilot dropping, but either way, the interval between Pilot and Jufro is certainly closer this time down the Mario Andretti Straight than it was the lap before.
Yeah, in the aid of Simon Pilot, I was watching the last lap. Between himself, comparative to Dowdhauer in front of him, and Jufro just behind him in the rearview mirror, it seemed as though his Pilot was really the only driver apart from Train Lapsevich, James, in the top 5 to set a lap around the 122.8s. Everybody from Alon Day, Dowdhauer, and Jufro, they set around 122.6s to 122.7s. So it is relatively quicker here in the case of everybody else except for Pilot, really in this top 5. So I guess that could be a testament to maybe the tires are starting to fall off just a bit on Pilot's machine, and maybe Jufro is doing a little bit better at taking care of his race car. Here's a look a little bit further back through the field. This is Ulysse Del Sol in the number 10 machine, trying to catch up to fellow driver up in front, the 90 of Davide Dallara. Of course, Dallara did not have the best of races, James, at Homestead last week, but definitely doing a better job today and currently working through P9. I think this is successful for the first 8 laps of the race.
Don't think he's going to complain, especially because it really was a rough showing for Dallara last week at Homestead Miami Speedway, but he's got more road course experience. That's where you see the drivers of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series more often than not ply their trade, so it would make sense that this week offers an opportunity for Dallara to improve and to gain a few more points as everybody works their way back onto the Mario Andretti Straight. This is actually a very good battle for 9th, 10th, and then that's Jake Cosio just behind these two as they go door to door down the Mario Andretti Straight. Dallara might make this pass as they come up the hill.
To be side by side through the final corners, and I think then, James, this is one of the more interesting parts, I guess, apart from the uphill section in the Mosses, where you try to swing around this right-hander, then go through the left-hander, and then you have a slower right-hander, which is the final corner of the racetrack, James. I think we can recall collectively just how many times the Cameron One Truck Series has had a moment where they're side by side in that final corner. They give each other the bumper, they give each other the door, and then we have a photo finish coming to the line. And so far, it looks like the 90 is able to hold off Del So for the moment. As you see this 3-car trio, this is all the way back from 9 to P11, and they seem to have a bit of a gap between themselves and what is the car up in front of this trio in the 13 of Raja Caruth, who has since fallen off of Victor Barrales' rear bumper and is now just trying to catch up to 8th and just hold this place.
Good look here off of Paul Giffro's on board. He's sticking with Simon Pilot. Last time by, he was faster by, maybe 100th of a second. So not much between those two. However, the thing to note, Tobias Dauenhauer is starting to drive away from this battle for third. He was also 2/10 quicker than your race leader, Alain Day, last time by. So Dauenhauer maybe doing a little bit better job of saving the tires as we go back on board with Giuffre. See if he can get alongside Simon Pilot. Maybe, just maybe, get a run here out of turns 9 and 10, coming up to White's corner to complete the lap at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
It's just a good look at what Giuffre is going through. Right there, rear end kicked out in the aid of Simon Pilot. So here comes Giuffre. Not a move that in turn 1. I think he's just going to wait for the right opportunity. I think Moss Corner might be the best place to do it just because you're hard on the brakes, you're going uphill. You've got enough space to make the pass complete. And so we'll see if Giuffre is able to do so. Right here, look at this great battle right now. This is Miguel Gomez, Leonardo Colavita. This is Justin Campbell. All the guys here in this group, Alex Tagliani, also here as well. So everybody around, I'd say 16th through 19th, all in a group together. The 46 falling off just a little bit over the past couple of laps. But Campbell and everybody else seem to be doing a solid job of holding them off. And now Tagliani, the Canadian driver who's led the most laps here at Canadian Tire in the Pinty Series, could be here up to get to the 46.
Alex Tagliani, who has done so much driving on a Montreal Quebec in the NASCAR Pinty Series, but he's competed in so many different forms of racing, sports cars, open wheel, NASCAR, you name it. Tags has probably driven it in some way, shape, or form, and now applying his hand in iRacing, so doing it all virtually as well. He'll be running in the NASCAR 50 Series again in 2022, and just trying to get to the inside there. He's going to move Miguel Gomez out of the way on the exit of Moss Corner to take over the 17th position.
And I heard Gomez give a little chatter over the radio, a bit of contact there coming out of Moss Corner. Doesn't seem to be too much damage out of the 46 or the 18 car. But luckily, they seem to be okay, and the 46 is just going to lose a lot of the track position and the time. But his car, fortunately, is going to be clean. Remember, there is the opportunity to get a fresh car on pit road if you end up damaging it enough. And luckily for the 46, it's not going to be enough to send him to pit road and keep him out of this contention for the race. You see right there, out of the right-hander, the second apex. Slight contact there, James. No harm, no foul. Just a little touch, and the 46 got a little bit out of shape, and he lost it there. And unfortunately, Miguel Gomez now around 3 seconds behind where Tag is right now.
But we talked about that at the very beginning of the broadcast, right before we went green flag racing, that if we were going to see incidents here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in this Coca-Cola 30, it was going to be more likely than not over at Moss Corner. And so it has come to bear out as Gomez will try and rebound from 18th.
As you continue to watch the battle, there's the 46, runs all by himself. There's a lap car right in front of him, but as he runs by himself, noticing a couple more battles on the track. I've noticed that it seems as though the number 39 of Victor Barrales, he's starting to catch up to fellow driver up in front, Alex de Alba, in the number 14. These drivers have been rather close. I mentioned earlier in the race, or at least we talked about it, James, that Raja Caruth was on the rear bumper of this 39 for a while in the opening stint. But it appears as though Barrales has kept the pace up here in these first couple laps, and he's starting to catch up to de Alba rather quick. So maybe more often than not, Alex de Alba will have to worry just a little bit as they both try to catch up to fellow Pinty Series driver Train Lapsovich in the 20 as he runs in front of him.
As those two continue to battle, we remind you that today's broadcast, the eNASCAR International iRacing Series, is brought to you by our friends at Digital Motorsports. You can learn more at www.digital-motorsports.com today. Lots of battles all over the racetrack, looking all around to see some of the best ones here, and I believe we're going to lock on to well, I thought we were going to go to Alex de Alba, but instead we're going to slide a little bit further back to Alex Tagliani, who just got around Federico Gutierrez, Pico Gutierrez, as he's also known. So tags up to P16. We move just up the racetrack here, get a good look at what happened. I think that Gutierrez got a little bit loose there. I believe that's turn 3. Just got wide, got maybe out, or locked up the brakes is exactly what happened to Gutierrez. That makes a little bit more sense now. I wondered why he slowed up so much in the corner, but you lose the grip, you lose the ability to turn, you're going to lose some time, and it makes it easy for tags to make the pass. Here's Trayton Lapsevich out of Grimsby, Ontario, the home province driver here, not just in his nation, but in his province too, trying to go catch up to Jufro and Pilot and company. Meanwhile, also worth noting that Dauenhauer has stretched it out even further over Pilot and Jufro, who are just up the racetrack from Lapsevich. It's now about maybe 2.4, 2.5 seconds from Dauenhauer to this battle between Pilot and Jufro, and then Lapsevich is just a few car lengths behind.
Yeah, no doubt. Dauenhauer has pretty much left himself away from everybody else. He separated himself, and I think that's a good thing, just to try and catch your race leader, Alan Day, and maybe give a fight for the race lead. But no doubt here, Trayton Lapsevich has picked up the pace last time by. Was almost a full 3/10, James, faster than the driver up in front, the 64 of Paul Jufro. So Lapsevich is starting to pick up the pace, and obviously you'd be familiar if you were a Pinty Series driver, because these drivers in that Canadian Series have raced this track often, and they're going to be racing this track 2 times, both in May and September for 2022 in that respective series. So they've got a lot of experience on that end. As Dauenhauer, you get a good look at his Ford Mustang as he rides through in second, pretty much racing the track all by himself. And then we go from a Whelen Euro Series driver to a Pig Mexico Series driver. Still watching this battle, James, between Alex de Alba and Victor Barrales. I believe they're catching up to Paul Jufro and Trayton Lapsevich collectively, but they're trying to battle each other. But I think de Alba really has pulled away just a bit.
They are. No, you're right about that. Last time by on the charts, Pilot ran a 1:24, Jufro ran a 23.8, Lapsevich a 23.5, and Alba a 23.6, and Barrales a 23.7. So they were all at least a 10th faster than Pilot, who's running in third. And we've noted how it seems like he's just sort of hanging on and just watching his car through these corners. The rear end is stepping out more with Pilot's car than it is with Jufro's, than it is with Lapsevich's, than it is with Alba's, than it is with Barrales. It suggests to me that Pilot may have run the rear Goodyear Eagles off of his Chevy Camaro a little bit more than he'd like, and he may be suffering with grip.
That's going to explain the reason why I think not only him, but why Jufro and why pretty much the drivers behind have lost out in the battle with Dauenhauer, is because those rear tires are starting to really kick off. And I talked about Moss Corner, just how easy it is to make contact, how tough it is to go hard on the brakes, and it's also just as tough to get out of the corner. And when you try to put in the throttle with these cars, really, you have to baby it. You really have to be careful. You got to apply it very gently before you get to the straight. And then even when you're going through the gears, you're going up the revs, the car is still wanting to wheel spin itself. So you have to be really careful, really wary about what you can do there. And at this point, Jufro, Lapsevich starting to really tick off laps. I think Pilot may have to start to worry here as the driver is the last step on the podium.
I think the question is, I would assume if anybody's got spotters, anybody has crew members helping, we know that there's a little bit there. I believe it's Parker Retzlaff working with Trayton Lapsevich, driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2022. But they will have noted that Pilot is slow. And now I think it's on, especially Jufro in this situation, to figure out whether or not he wants to try and force the issue or whether or not he wants to wait and see if Pilot is going to make a mistake. He hasn't been that much faster than Pilot, but you can start to see it now. Jufro really has done a better job saving the tires, and there might be contact once, twice. So if we go past the old short track racing rules, it's 1 tap to let him know, 2 times to let him know that the next time you're going to move him, and who knows, maybe we might get that 3rd tap going down at the end of the Mario and Betty Straight, or not, who knows, but we'll find out here, and we'll watch this battle between Jufro and Pilot.
And in a way, James, it's so tough with this track to really select where you're going to pass a race car. And that's why, in the case Jufro has just been patient. He's kind of been forced to be behind Pilot's rear bumper, and now starting to get Lapsevich into this battle to make it a 3-way tie. Actually, Pilot, though, is going to hit pit road, so I was questioning whether Jufro was going to try and really shove it into a corner and make the pass complete. But Simon Pilot is going to take down to the pits for the first time today, and I believe, James, he struck the inside wall there trying to get into pit road by himself.
So he's going to go down pit road for service and get his car stopped. That means that we're probably going to see everybody else in just a few moments. So before they head to pit road, we are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. More coverage of the Coca-Cola 30 from the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports coming your way from iRacing just after this.
That's probably the first time that I've forgotten that I was on a simulator. And that was amazing.
It's so cool and so realistic and gives you the ultimate feel and the most realistic feel.
I loved the bumps. They really made me feel like, really realistic.
This is engaging all of your senses.
Side recording, this is for the win. Still far abreast into the braking zone. This is sensational racing. And getting ready to cross, he goes around the outside, but it's not enough.
And hunting for a way by it all. Round two.
Gonna come back at him. It's gonna be a race to the line. Does he have enough?
Welcome back to coverage of the Coca-Cola 30, race number 2 of the 2022 DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. You're at iRacing live from the virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario. Today's broadcast also brought to you by DBOX. And a reminder, you want to sign up to get your hands on the rig. If you can predict who will win this DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series and get a rig filled with DBOX technology, sign up today at dbox.com/eNASCAR/contest. Big thanks to our friends at DBOX today who invite you to feel it all. James by Kenneth Bueno here, bringing you all the action from the virtual road course du jour of Ontario as we turn our attention to pit road very shortly. Most of these drivers will likely be coming in short order for fresh tires. Not too many have come in yet. Here's an onboard with Alex Alba, currently running in 4th of note. And of the leaders before we left you for our commercial break, Simon Pilot has come in, Paul Jouffreau has come in. Everybody else still out there on old tires within the top 9. Pilot's made it back to 10th. But still work to do as De Alba will try and go chase down his fellow countryman, Victor Baradas for P4, Kenneth.
As they get by one of the cars way into the grass there, the 48 machine, I believe there, that blue and orange machine, everybody's able to get by quick. There indeed is the 48 of Yevgen Sokolovsky, the driver who started back in 25th today. Definitely not having a good day so far here from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but notice a couple of laps ago, James, that the pass was complete. The 39, Barales, was able to switch around the number 14 of Alex de Alba. The two Mexican drivers from San Luis Potosí are already in that battle when it seemed as though De Alba had let him by, understood that Barrales was just a little bit faster going into the final section of the course, and so let him go. Barrales now trying to chase down Lapsevich, but of course, pit road becoming a very big topic of conversation, James, and I'm noticing many of the leaders are starting to stay out. Not sure if they can really make it all the way, but many of the heavy runners, including, like you said, Drew Froh, Simon Pilot, are going down for service. So that begs the question, does everybody else start on back or even first through everywhere through the field go down for service, or do they try and wait this out until the end?
It's a tire thing more than anything else. It's not necessarily a fuel thing. It's definitely more fresh rubber. And if you're somebody like Simon Pilot, who we could tell was just driving the wheels off the car and had no rear grip at the end of his run, as you get a good look here at Barrales, who is fighting Trayton Lapsevich, Mexico versus Canada, the Pete Mexico Series versus the Pinty Series here, working their way through 3 and 4. But Barrales with full concentration, trying to just look for any sort of opening here underneath Lapsevich, who just was a little bit sideways, and this may open up the door for Barrales going into Moss Corner.
Barrales is going to back out, though. He understood that was a left-hand corner, gave the space to Lapsevich, and now to the outside, or switch over maybe the inside. He'll go into the right-hander 5B. Almost a bumper there to the back end of that Chevrolet Camaro. But Barrales is definitely putting this pressure. Lapsevich is taking notice, and one thing that I've noticed with that 39 is that he's done a better job of taking care of the rears, and he's got a lot of launch off the exit of the corner. I've noticed that, of course, with Lapsevich, like we mentioned with Simon Pilot, it's just that the rear ends cannot last that long, and if you don't take care of them enough, with this hot track temperature, you're just going to start to slip and slide. That grip is going to be non-existent off of the corners, and so Barrales, coming off of the corners, definitely doing a lot better. He's going to send it to the final corner, and the 39 into P3 for the moment, door-to-door to the start-finish line.
Lapsevich will try and win the drag race down the front stretch, but he just doesn't have the line he needs to stay alongside Barrales, and the Peak NASCAR Mexico Series driver will jump his way up into P3 and onto the podium once again. And if we note that Raja Caruth is currently in 6th unofficially, I think that makes Barrales our live points leader. No, Kenneth?
I believe so. Caruth was the winner, but Barrales has done the best over the 2 races. We mentioned him getting actually the best of Lapsevich at Homestead to finish 2nd. So I guess deja vu, maybe James, between these two up at the front of the field. But yes, this should give Barrales the de facto points lead. If he can hold it, though, there's still 10 laps, so there still is the possibility for any mistakes to come out of that 39 or from anyone else. But Barrales should come out of today, if he stays where he is, that points leader, and I think that's a lot of good momentum going into Circuit Zolder next week.
Yes, going to go to the home turf for the drivers of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series. Their time to shine will come next week. Another onboard shot of De Alba here, who is next in line to try and chase down Lapsevich. And De Alba just maybe a car length or 2, and this now becomes the same question that we asked of Simon Pilot when he was fighting Paul Jouffreau a little bit earlier. Does Lapsevich have enough rear tire left to hang on to the spot and keep De Alba at bay?
That's a very good point you make there, James. And I think we'll see. I believe that De Alba was definitely faster than Lapsevich here, especially in this segment of the race, like Barrales was. I think Barrales was just a little bit better throughout the entire track than De Alba was. But as you ride on board here with Lapsevich, you see how hard he's working the wheel and having to really kick the car out. I think that's a really good explanation of what his tire life is at right now. The rears are starting to kick out. This car is starting to be a little non-compliant with the exit on the straightaways. And so Lapsevich, you see him having to really correct the car out of the corners, through the uphills, through the downhills, and then going through the hard braking zone up through Moss Corner is going to really wrestle the car here out all the way to the Mario Andretti straightaway. So Lapsevich, I think that's a good showing of how his tires are right now. Not very good. And so Alex De Alba could pounce on that if he needs to.
And a reminder that every twitch that you see on his onboard camera is just a little bit of time loss as we go a little bit further back in the field. Haven't had the chance to talk about some of the drivers further back in this race, but it's a good little group here that's fighting for position. It's Davide Dallara, Aaron Cosio, who leads this bunch, and then Dallara, Del So, Pilot, Jouffreau, Ortiz, some of the drivers that came down to pit some 5 or 6 laps ago, all fighting in this pack and working for position.
And for the case of Pilot and Jouffreau, they pretty much went down just for new Goodyear Eagles. They didn't have to go for fuel, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, so this is all in an attempt to come back through the field and to hopefully get positions back, even though they let all of that by. They lost all that time just because they had to slow down for pit road speed limit, come for their stop, get 4 fresh good Yegos, and be on their way. Here's Pilot, though, going to make some quick work here on Del Sol in the 10. He's going to try to work on Delara in just a bit. But for Jufro, I think it's been a little more difficult just behind. He's been caught a bit in the sandwich. And so cutting through the field isn't as easy as it was at Homestead Miami Speedway, to say the least, James Pike. And so for Pilot and Jufro, they're just trying to pick up the broken pieces off of that pit stop. And it seems as though that they've been able to do it so far cleanly. Although the question is, how much can they gain before the time overcomes their opportunity with 8 laps to go?
As they make the pass, I think Jufro and Pilot would beg to differ, because they managed to pick off a few cars here just within a half lap. So plenty of pace here on the old tires, as we'll get a good look at Gordon Barnes of the United Kingdom. Haven't had the chance to talk much about him this afternoon, but another driver in the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series, currently running the 18th spot. He's maybe, we'll call it, 3.5 seconds behind Fico Gutierrez, running in 17th out of the Beat NASCAR Mexico Series.
Yeah, Barnes in that 148 all by himself. And at this point, I think, James, when you're in that sort of case, you're just racing the track. You know nobody's in front of you, nobody's behind you. Just run what you can, and if something happens, find it, get by it, and you'll be okay. But I believe may have had one driver go off. Indeed, it was the 90 of David Delara. We saw him in that battle from around P10. Lost all the track position, is now on pit road for fresh tires. So the 90 of Delara gonna try to take the sacrifice here. I believe there was contact around Moss Corner, and I think this is gonna be the explanation for it. There's the 90 on the outside. Bit of contact, I think, right there from the 10, and Jufro got into the corner, kind of stacked everybody up, and I think Delara here makes the mistake, or just something happens around this part of the track in the final corner.
So there is all the action on your screen. Everybody just trying to give chase now, as Pilot is going way up the road and way away from everybody as they continue to go after it.
Oh, and there it was right there. James 64, Jufro slid up the track, I think got the car upset near the curbing, and then just tried to revert it back to the left to get the car back on track, and then in turn hip checked the 90 of Delara, and then forced Delara to go off track, had to go for a little bit of a spin. And then, of course, like I mentioned, 90 went down pit road, so he's going to lose all that track position, and that is so tough for the Italian driver to get back in the fight here in this Coca-Cola 30. But there's another battle here up through the top 5. You mentioned Lapsevich falling off a little bit in pace, Alex de Alba giving the pressure in the rearview mirror. It is still going on, and that 14 has not let go as they get around the lap car.
De Alba just there working around the lap machine. I believe that might, and we'll double check this, but I think that may have been Vladimir Ziotzis. Yes, it was the Cypriot driver out of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series, but Ziotzis running in 19th position, De Alba in 5th, trying to go after Trayton Lapsevich once again. But Alex has managed to open up the gap to maybe about, call it 2.6, 2.7 seconds now on that battle for 4th between Lapsevich and De Alba.
And there you look at Zortsis, the Cypriot driver. See, he gets a lap down here, and everybody goes down. A lovely camera there out of the sim rig at this point in time as he rides in the 1. Hasn't been the greatest season so far for Vladimiros up to this point, but hopefully we can see him rebound when we get to Zolder, when we get to Daytona Road Course, and trying to come back for what's going to be the Phoenix Raceway as Roger Caruth try to give him a bit of pressure to get by, and Zortsis almost gets into the tire bearers. Luckily, he's able to save it.
That would be Caruth saying, I need to go catch after De Alba and Lapsevich because I want to make sure I hang on to the points lead and don't lose too much ground to Victor Banaras, who still runs in P3 at this time. Friendly reminder that today's broadcast of the eNASCAR International iRacing Series is brought to you by our friends at DBOX, who invite you to visit their website at www.d-box.com to feel it all today. In case you were wondering about Alon Day, we've not said much of his name because he hasn't really had too much to deal with in terms of traffic or competition. The Israeli driver of the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series in control of this by over 8 seconds and well clear of the field. If we're looking at his situation, He's got Figo Gutierrez ahead of him, and maybe Davide De Lara, but it really is going to be largely clear track, and Alonso just really needs to keep it straight over the next few laps, but this very much is a race in his hands.
Yeah, no doubt. Alon Day, the Euro NASCAR driver who started in 2015, but he's easily become one of the better drivers in the series. He picked it up rather quickly, and the Israeli driver has definitely put it on today here from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He was a two-time NASCAR Berlin Euro Series champion in 2017 and 2018, and ever since then, up to 2021 and now 2022, he has definitely been one of the better ones in that series. And I think today, this has just been a show-out effort. We didn't see much of Alon Day at Homestead Miami, struggled just a bit with his car, but as soon as we hopped into practice here at Canadian Tire, he put the fastest lap, he was the fastest driver, and that was the story. That was it. Led all the laps up to this point, and coming to 3 laps to go, this is just going to be about holding his own, not having to worry about anybody else, clearing lap traffic, and just handling his business for the checkered flag.
We might need to start talking about Alon Day and the point standings too as we carry on here, and we'll see whether or not he can click off laps. But this is the 2020 eNASCAR International iRacing Series champion, riding on board out of Ashdod, Israel. One of the most successful Israeli drivers of all time, incidentally, and looking to add a big iRacing victory to his resume.
Yeah, this is going to be in line. What this is going to do, James, is put a different winner on the board. Roger Carruth, winner last week, put Alon Day on it if he can hold this on, and he'll be our second different winner. And that was a staple part of last season's eNASCAR International iRacing Series, James. We had 3 different winners at Brands Hatch, Coda, and Daytona Road. Of course, Simon Pilot was the first winner that we had, Agustin Canapino, and then Lionel Pernia in his car winning each of the respective races. So maybe we could continue the trend, James, of seeing different winners every single race. We've got more races overall. We've got more road courses, so could be a possibility of a multiple-time winner. But with Alon Day being able to maybe hold on and win today, it's going to be, again, continuing the streak of different winners, no doubt.
Paul Jouffreau we're now on board with. He's not been able to regain the track position that he had at the start of this race via that pit stop. He and Simon Pilot came down and were running second and third at the time. Pilot's back up to 7th, Jouffreau back to 9th. So not quite making up all the track position, but he's got the opportunity to make a charge here on Aaron Cosio in the final handful of laps in this Coca-Cola 30 and maybe gain a few more spots before we head to Circuit Zolder next week.
And Jouffreau, Pilot, they've just kind of hung in there. And I think at this point, with the way they went down for pit road near the halfway mark of this race, it's just all the tires starting to rear out. It's starting to really equalize here. We talk about that a lot of the oval side when you get long runs in where fresh tires are going to be beneficial for a moment, but then all of a sudden they start to equalize and they stop being as fast as they used to be. That's what's happening right now between the A and the 64. They made their work. They got a bit of the benefit out of it to gain track position, but right now they're just kind of stalling out. Tires are starting to give out just a bit on the track temp, and at this point it may just be holding on for 7th and 9th respectively on their ends. But one who is trying at least, James, to get up through the field once more is Roger Carruth. He's trying to work into 5th. That's Alex de Alba on the Ford Mustang up ahead. We talked about him putting pressure on Lapsevich, but that has since simmered down. And so Carruth, the Washington, D.C. native and the winner last week, trying to hopefully get into the top 5 and hopefully keep his points lead.
It's going to be tricky. He, I think, would need to go catch Lapsevich in order to hang on to it, but it'll be very, very close, and it should be a good battle in these final 2 laps of this race at iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park between de Alba of the Peak NASCAR Mexico Series and Carruth at a NASCAR Drive for Diversity program. Back on board with Paul Jouffreau trying to catch Cosio. We haven't seen much progress there, and last time by, Cosio actually was faster by 1/10 of a second. Run this down towards the very end, coming towards the white flag. Alonso crossing the stripe just now to begin his final lap of this Coca-Cola 30. Everybody else trying to give chase, and we'll see how some of these last few battles pan out, Kenneth.
We'll see exactly how, but I think indeed most of the battles have have been over for the most part, apart from Lapsevich and Alba. Maybe Caruth in this case, as they're coming across the final corner. They're going to get the white flag. But for Alan Day, what a dominating day this was for him here at Canadian Tire. He's got about one more car to get by on lap traffic. That is Fico Gutierrez in the car right in front of him that he has to kind of stretch out. But I don't think he's going to be worrying about that too much. Alan Day, I think he set one lap in practice when he joined, and he immediately went to the top of the board. So Alan Day has been quick from the get-go, and this race has shown no different. As he goes through Moss Corner for the final time, he'll head for the Mario Andretti straightaway, and James Pipe, we might be seeing another different winner in this eNASCAR International iRacing Series in the form of Alan Day.
This is a man who has experience road course racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, raced in 2016 with MBM Motorsports, and is taking that experience to good use in the virtual world as we go on board with Alan Day. The final few corners here, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, clean run up through turns 9 and 10, working his way through White's Corner to make one more right-hander onto the main straight, just behind the lap traffic, and it is Alan Day who will go to victory lane. The Israeli driver wins the Coca-Cola 30, and you can see the sigh of relief on his face, and the smiles start to come out. Now he can have a little bit of fun with it. Now we can find out who's going to win the rest of the battles coming to the line.
Hey, he had to work hard, no doubt. This track was very physical all around, and as we watch the battle for fourth, Lapsevich, I think he's going to be able to hold on for sure. Lapsevich is going to hold on to fourth. Alex Alaba, a great run for him, though. He's ended up fifth. Raja Caruth, your winner at Homestead, he was P6. So that battle ends out. As for Cosio Pilot, that's going to round out with Pilot getting the best. Drew Fro is going to be the last one in that trio. He's going to be in ninth. And I guess one more battle here. And Justin Campbell leading Davide Dallar and another group of cars.
This is 14th, 15th, 16th on board with Diego Ortiz, who's the last driver in this trio as they work their way towards the end of the Mario Andretti straight. Campbell's been able to open up a bit of a gap. They were tight together through Moss Corner as Dallar almost sent himself off into the sand trap there, but they'll snake their way through 9, through White's Corner in turn 10, and after all that drama, it's just as you were. It'll be Campbell, Delana, and Ortiz who come home 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Good run to them, making it clean all the way to the start-finish line, but obviously focus is on Alan Day, the number 21 machine. And what about Tobias Downhauer? James didn't talk about him all too much except for the first part of this race. Held on for second, did not catch today, but a great run for him nonetheless.
Should be lots of fun to talk to some of these drivers in just a few moments. We are going to be back after a short commercial break. Post-race coverage from the Coca-Cola 30 for the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports coming your way just after this.
When I hit the wall, this thing shook like crazy. I have experienced that in real life, so I can compare.
I tend to choose rally games that are really putting the actuators through their paces, and they've been holding up really well.
That's exactly how it is in real life. That's the coolest part.
Side through the corner. This is for the win.
Still 4 abreast into the braking zone. This is sensational racing.
And getting ready to cross. He goes around the outside, but it's not enough.
And hunting for a way by and
By
all
side.
round 2.
This is unbelievable. Oh, I can't get over how real that feels.
I didn't know what to say, really. I'm a bit shocked by that.
What a cool experience this is.
Welcome back to coverage of the Coca-Cola 30 for the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Here's your full field rundown from this afternoon's action at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Alonde takes the first victory in this competition for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, winning by 10 seconds over Germany's Tobias Dauenhauer. Victor Baradas Jr. finished in third. We'll hear from that trio momentarily. Trayton Lapsevich comes home in fourth highest finishing Canadian driver in today's event. Alex de Alba finished in the fifth position. Sixth went to Rajak Ruth. Simon Pilot comes home seventh. Eighth is where you found NASCAR Peak Mexico Series driver Aaron Cosio, Paul Giffreau, and Ulisses Del Sol completed the top 10.
The 46 Chevrolet of Miguel Goma is able to bring it home in 11 after starting P17. Alex Tagliani went up and down on the grid for a moment, but he ends up P12 at the end of this Coca-Cola 30. Leonardo Colavita in the 9 machine, he is 13th at the start-finish line, and we saw that battle between Justin Campbell and Davide Dallara. They end up both 14th and 15th, respectively, on the track. Diego Ortiz in the number 6 car ends up in P16. Federico Gutierrez in his car is 17th. He's the final driver on the lead lap here from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. It'll be Gordon Barnes, the first driver, 1 lap down in the 148 car. Jake Cosio will be 19th, also 1 lap down. Same deal for the 1 car of Vladimiro Sotzis. And you'll find Jojo Maggi in the number 69 car. Yevgen Sokolovsky, after a bit of a rough start, he's 4 laps down in 22nd. Jocelyn Fecteau, Massimiliano Lanza in his car, and Andres Perez de Rara complete the 25-car field.
There's your full field rundown for this Coca-Cola 30. And from that, we turn now to our podium interviews and back to Kenneth Bueno, who's joined by today's race winner, Alonde.
Here with Alonde, the multi-time NASCAR Whelen Euro Series champion and winner for the first time in the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. Alon, I gotta ask you first, because you got into practice. You set the first lap in your session. It was 1 out of 2 overall in practice, but you set the fastest lap overall. First of all, walk us through how you're able to do that, to show up and put it on, and then to put it on and lead every single lap to win today's race.
No, I just practice through the week. Was pretty sad after the first race. I got wrecked after a few, 5-6 laps. So I said, like, this race I really want to really prove what I'm capable of doing. I did practice in the online server through the week. So yeah, I don't know. I was just quick. I surprised myself, to be honest.
Well, no doubt, to say the least, here from this track, you were quick, and you were quick by a large margin. You led every single lap from the drop of the green flag. But talk to us about this track, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Not a staple track in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, but one that has been regarded as one of the more physical ones, especially with this car combo on the iRacing sim and in real life. So kind of walk us through how physical you had to be to take this Xfinity Series car around this track for as long as you did.
Yeah, I have to say that I wasn't sure how tough it's gonna be, because I know that Tobias is an extremely quick driver. So I was so concentrated. I'm fully sweat right now. I was so concentrated not to make any mistakes, not to be involved with any back markers and things like that. And the track already is super bumpy, and even with the steering wheel, you always have to keep yourself focused, and the corners are so technical. But yeah, fortunately, I managed to keep myself out of any trouble and finish with the finest car in victory lane.
We saw when you crossed the start-finish line, it was a sigh of relief. You knew the work was done. Yeah. The work was definitely worth it on this win here in this eNASCAR International iRacing Series. What's going to be the plan here for Zolder, Daytona Road Course, for Phoenix? What are you going to try to do to maybe surge up into the points or maybe win a couple of races this season?
I know that my strengths are on road courses tracks, so this is my time basically. I will push as hard as I can to win also Zolder, and also the track after that. And yeah, I don't know. And then we go to Phoenix, and I think I need to put some work on the oval skills, and hopefully I will be there in the top 3 in the end of the season.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it, Alan. I want to congratulate you on behalf of our team on the win here today from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in this Coca-Cola 30. And, of course, wishing you the best of luck at Circuit Zolder and Daytona Road Course. You earned it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alan Day, the NASCAR Wheeling Euro Series driver, ends up nabbing the pole and nabbing the race entirely, leading every single lap onto his very first eNASCAR International iRacing Series victory. James, you've caught up with P2, and it's a great effort out of the German driver Tobias Downhauer, who finishes second.
Indeed, highest finish for a German driver in this series so far. We're now joined by our runner-up, Tobias Downhauer. And Tobias, at least from what I could tell watching you in this race, it seemed like after about maybe 5 or 6 laps, you really started to pick up this track in race conditions. What sort of clicked for you once you got in the car as you got going in this race?
Yeah, first of all, congrats to Alan and Victor. They did an amazing job. And yeah, it was very difficult to keep your tires alive at these hot temperatures, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and yeah, struggling a bit with the tires.
Talk about that challenge. How difficult was it to manage tire wear and tire degradation over the course of 10, 15, 20, 25 laps? It looked like it was difficult for not just you, but a lot of the field.
Yeah, it was very difficult. Very hot track temperatures. So yeah, I tried to keep cool at the beginning and try to handle my tires, and yeah, it worked pretty good. So I think I had a good pace at the end, and yeah, looking forward to the next races.
How excited are you for Circuit Zolder next week? You've got real life experience there and plenty of prowess on the esports side of the Euro Series, but to go to a track that you've driven personally for the first time, how do you think that will make a difference for you?
Maybe it will make a difference. I know the track in real life, so the first race of the series in the oval was new for me. I didn't drive in the oval before, so yeah, Zolder is a track I knew, and I like it. And let's see how it works in esports.
It'd be fun to watch. Tobias, congratulations on your podium finish, and danke for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Many thanks.
Tobias Downhauer finishing P2. We go to P3. It is a second podium in a row for the NASCAR Big Mexico Series driver Victor Barradas. He is joined by Kenneth Bueno.
Here indeed with the 39 of Victor Barradas, and second time you end up on the podium here, this time from a road course. Give us your experience on what this race was for you.
Yeah, so it was a very tough race because I didn't have the pace to be at the top, at least on one lap pace in quali. So when I saw that I didn't have a good quali, the plan was to save the tires as much as I could, because the tire off was extreme in this track. So I was just like trying to don't spin too much the rear tires and don't lock up the fronts, and at the end I think that I was able to go to the top 3 because of that.
And rear tires, I think one of the biggest parts of this track, because it's so bumpy. You've got a low downforce car with a lot of power, and the track temperatures were triple digits, which doesn't help in terms of trying to help with grip. But how are you able to kind of manage that? Because it looked like over the long run, you had a lot of pace over guys like Lapsevich, over guys even like Downhauer in P2. How are you able to keep that car intact and keep those rear tires afloat when it looked really hard to do so?
Yeah, I was actually surprised of the pace that I was able to do on the long run, but I think that the plan since the beginning was to don't go full throttle until the tires were straight, and be very careful with the throttle, like modulation with throttle. So also I did a lot of short shifting, so I think that was some of the things that paid off at the end of the race.
Y ahora Victor tiene la ventaja de los puntos yendo a Circuit Zolder la próxima semana. So, ¿cómo vas a tratar a mantenerla yendo a esta pista la próxima semana con estos carros?
Yeah, so actually in this race I was very concentrated in trying to build a gap with Trayton and with Raja. But I mean, now I think that the plan now is going to be to don't lose too much points with Elon, because this race it looks like Elon is going to be very strong on the road courses, and we have a lot of road courses in this championship. So maybe I have to stop looking from the other guys and concentrate with the ones that are dominating the road courses. And if I'm able to don't lose too much points with him over the next 3 races, we should be good to fight for the championship in the season finale in Phoenix.
Well, the attack is clear. You've got the points lead and a lot of momentum, no doubt, into the rest of the road courses, which is definitely suiting to your strong suits. Victor, want to congratulate you on behalf of our team on this finish here today from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And, of course, we wish you the best of luck heading into Zolder next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Victor Barrales ending up P3 after today's festivities, James, and a great run nonetheless. Points lead going to be in his hands going into Zolder, and I think that is the best case scenario for him going into the next event.
The next event, which will be the traditional finale track for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series Circuit Zolder in Belgium. All of our Euro Series drivers have some form of experience here in real life. They will have their skills put to the test on the sim. iRacing's broadcast of round number 3, the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports, coming your way at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Saturday, January 22nd from Circuit Zolder. Very different racetrack, much more chicanes, much more straights. Definitely going to be a different animal than what we saw here today. But what we saw here today, I think, Kenneth Bueno, more than anything else, a lot of rebound. For some of the drivers who didn't have the best of races in the opening round at Homestead, Miami, but a lot of folks here sort of getting back on the horse, finding the rhythm, finding their groove, which I think should carry over into the next 2 weeks because we're going to road course racing for a little bit.
And I mentioned last week at the end of the show at Homestead, Miami, that now is going to be the time for those road course racing guys, because a majority of this field, they naturally run road courses. That's their thing. That's what they're best at. So to go into this stint, into the sim in this series before we get to the final race at Phoenix, apart from that race, it's just going to be their home turf, what they know best, the tracks they know best, the type of racing they are stylized to in real life and now in the sim in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see those drivers. And what I'm going to be looking for is probably more different race winners. Maybe it's Zolder, we see another guy dominate like an Alan Day did today, or maybe we see somebody else dominate the Daytona road course before we get to the final race at Phoenix. So there are so many variables up in the air. I think that's what makes this series so unique, is that you've got such a large spread of talent that anybody theoretically could go up to the front and just dominate a race and win like we saw Day did today. So I think looking forward to Zolder, different track, different dynamic, but that's what we're here for.
And maybe a different group of drivers up at the front. Who knows? We'll have to see. But you would think that the Euro Series drivers would come to play and they would have next weekend circled as the one they really want to capitalize on, because they'll have more experience there than anyone else. However, could be a little bit more competitive at the front too, because we've got more Euro Series drivers than we do from any of the other series represented in this eNASCAR International iRacing Series. And that might make it a little bit more entertaining at the front as well. But again, we'll all have to wait until next week to see. One more time, we'll remind you, if you haven't had the chance to go for it, you can head to d-box.com/eNASCAR/contests, and you can take a guess at who is going to be the winner of the eNASCAR International iRacing Series. You'll win so much if you get it right. A SimLabs P1X chassis, racing seat, brackets, an entire Fanatec direct drive wheel set with pedals and a NASCAR rim and a shifter, a mount, a 49-inch Samsung ultra-wide curved monitor, and of course the DBOX haptic system to finish it all off. You can enter by hitting the link there on your screens and punching that into your web address browser through February 5th, and that's courtesy of our friends at DBOX, who invite you to feel it all. Big thank you to a lot of people who have helped make this Coca-Cola 30 possible for the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports. For the team at iRacing, Drew Adamson, Sean Ambrose, Tyler Hudson, Cisco Scaramuva, Travis Sullenberger, and Corey Revenge. For our team on the broadcast and the folks that help make our operations happen, Gary Sexton and John Theodore. And for the folks that were on today's broadcast and behind the scenes, Justin Prince, Cameron Alverdon, our team on the show, producer Ryan Bauer, and my colleague in the booth, Kenneth Bueno. I am James Plank. Thank you so much for watching iRacing's coverage of round number 2, the DBOX eNASCAR International iRacing Series presented by Digital Motorsports, the Coca-Cola 30 from iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. We look forward to seeing you next Saturday afternoon when the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series stars get their crack, as does everybody else. So we head to Europe, we head to Belgium. Circuit Soldier coming up next. Thanks so much for tuning in, and so long from Bowmanville, Ontario.